Hi guys, it's Trevor Chalaba here and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Good ball. Driver. Two newcomers to the second division there, Driver and With. Lee! Colin Lee scores for Chelsea. And that celebrates an anniversary for him, because it's 3 years ago to the day since Colin Lee scored 4 goals in his first game for Spurs in that 9-0 win over Bristol Rovers.
Fellow Chelsea supporters, welcome back to the Blue Day podcast. I'd like to welcome my guest today. He made a total of 223 appearances for the club, scoring 41 goals. He was part of the team that won the Second Division Championship in 1984 and the Full Members' Cup in 1986. Plus, he played alongside the likes of John Bumstead, Gary Chivers and Kerry Dixon. Here is Colin Lee. Colin, welcome to the Blue Day podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good morning to everyone.
Colin, I just want to start the show, start the interview by asking about your earliest memories in football. So what was it that got you into football? Was it a particular moment, particular player? What was it about football that...
I think when I was a young lad, for my sins, I supported Manchester United. Simply because the person that I admired the most was George Best.
Right.
And, watching him play football was an inspiration, albeit he was a completely different player to what I was, but and far more talented. But I think it was then. I think playing grassroots football at a very young age. Obviously, we didn't have the academies or the School of Excellence or anything like that when I was a young kid. So I was brought up in a small town on the edge of Dartmoor in Devon, a place called Buckfastleigh. And my football career really started playing for the local team, Buckfastleigh Rangers. And at a very young age, broke into their first team, which toughened me up a bit, to be quite honest, playing against men at that time. And it all went from there, really. But I was also a rugby player because my family had a rugby background, and I was actually selected to play both football and rugby for Devon, and played rugby for Devon and played football for Devon. But moving on from the Buckfastleigh days, I obviously went into secondary school, and we had two very good PE teachers. One was really keen on football and one was really keen on rugby. So it suited me down to the ground, and they helped me with my career in the early stages. And then we progressed into leaving Buckfastleigh and going to a club called Tor Trojans, which was made up mostly of the Devon players at that time playing football. So we won every single trophy you could think of, smashing teams about 10-0 and stuff like that, So, that was really where it all came from, from those early stages, working my way through. I can remember playing football on the road, on the main road, with a light over the top of us and the fence post being the goal post, and
right.
And then running home because we were late to get home and stuff like that, and I think that's this day and age that would never happen, obviously, but that's where I started from, yeah.
And as you progressed through your career, and then you ended up becoming professional, and you worked for you played for a few teams. Excuse me. It was in January of 1980. Fast sort of track to this point, where you signed for Chelsea from Tottenham of all teams.
Yeah.
I believe it was a fee for around £200,000 as well. It was quite rare, even in those days, for a player to transfer from Tottenham to Chelsea. How did this move come about for you?
But what it was, I was going through a difficult period at Tottenham. It was sort of a lack of form, really, and it affected my confidence. And to be quite honest with you, when I was at Torquay before I went to Tottenham, I had a person who worked with me all the time. He was the physio, come trainer, come everything, and his name was Mike Hickman. And basically, when everyone went home after training, I used to stay behind and do all the extra training with Mike, i.e., jumping exercises, timing exercises, weights, all sorts of stuff, albeit it was under a stand, a dirty old stand with a couple of school benches and a few weights, but and then eventually went outside onto the terrace and practicing jumping and heading this ball, which we tied up to a metal bar which stuck out, So, but Mike was like, he believed in me, and I knew that, and so when I came to this sticky point at Tottenham, I didn't really have anyone to turn to, and no one beside me. So I lost a lot of confidence. Ended up flipping in and out of the first team. Obviously played in the reserves every so often, and that was probably too easy for me. But eventually, obviously, at the time, Jeff Hurst and Bobby Gould were in charge, and they wanted me to come over to Chelsea. Tottenham then tried to step in the way, if you like, because they offered me a longer term contract because they knew possibly my potential, But when I'd spoken to Jeff, and him being a centre forward, a similar style player as me, I thought I could gain quite a lot from that. And it was a big decision, but in my opinion, the right decision. Excuse me, I've never looked back. I've never looked back and regretted anything to do with Chelsea. I've had, it was everything about it. And I'm not just saying it because I'm on your show, but everything about my time at Chelsea. I think I experienced most things, nearly getting relegated, getting promoted, all sorts of things, really. Injuries was my biggest bugbear. But overall, the time I had there and the people I met and the support that we received through very, very difficult periods was absolutely fantastic. So no regrets at all.
When you had the conversations with Sir Jeff Hurst before deciding to come to Chelsea, did he say what particular plans he had for you in terms of how he would want you to play?
Yeah, I mean, he seen me as a similar, like I said, a similar player to him. So he knew the movement. He knew that I relied on service, whereas, I wasn't an individualist like say a Pat Nevin or a Messi or someone like that. I relied on service, and I think in those days the majority of the teams did play 4-4-2 anyway. So it was really important that the build-up play, although I never got involved. Obviously, I've managed and I've coached now, but you'd imagine if you had someone like me or Jeff Hurst in the team, then you'd want crosses to come in, so it would make sense to have wingers or, even two wide players and wing backs as well in this day and age, so you'd get loads of crosses coming in. So yeah, he spoke to me about, trying to improve me, trying to make me better. And really knowing the type of player I was, that I was a player who received the ball from the back, brought the midfield into it, and then got into the box, basically. So it was pretty straightforward. Yeah.
And at the start of your time at Chelsea, who did you say you got on well with?
I always got on my best friend, and even when we met last few weeks ago, is Dave Speedy. I mean, Dave came in whilst I was there. Before that, I was quite sort of on my own, really, to a degree on my own, but I had friends. Don't get me wrong. When you've got people characters like Clive Walker and Mickey Droys and your Mickey Filleries and Gary Chivers and all them around you. You're always having a laugh, to be quite honest. In fact, I met up with Mickey Fillery a few months back. He lives not far from me, actually. I couldn't believe it, So, but no, I think that when Dave arrived, he lived in the same area as me in Camberley. Dave and I just got on so well, and I took him under my wing to a degree, and we've always remained really, really close friends, and although we don't speak to each other that often, I mean, I've not spoken to him for years and years and years until we met a few weeks back. And it's as if we just, it was just going back to how we used to be, having a laugh, like talking about certain things. So Dave was, and I had to look after him as well because he was a bit of a feisty boy. So
I can imagine.
No, he was. You needed to understand Dave, and Dave was an out and out winner, and nothing would stop him from winning. And I think he was different to the London boys because he'd come down from Doncaster, and the way that they sort of they're different. They're different in their beliefs, if you like, and their understanding, and they're not frightened to say what they want to say, No. And Speedo just emulates that. He's for me, he's just a proper person. There's no airs and graces. There's no hidden agendas. And yeah, me and him. He was my room partner, and there's a few stories there, but we're not allowed to say anything about that. So.
We shall keep them private. No problem about that. That's fine. You didn't make your debut until the March of that year due to injury. Your debut came against Cardiff. Do you remember much about your Chelsea debut?
Well, I think I scored, didn't I? I think I did.
Your first goal, well, funny enough, your first goal for Chelsea was against Luton a few weeks later.
Later, was it? Yeah. Yeah, I know that I got injured I think it was leading into that game. What we used to do, believe it or not, is on a Friday we always used to train at Stamford Bridge, but we used to do like sprinting exercises, change our direction stuff in sprints and stuff like that. And we always because of the team that was built, we were always in competition, so we always wanted to win that, and then we used to end up with just a five-a-side or something behind the goals,
Right.
And I think it was quite muddy, and I think I went to push off, and I felt something, and that's the reason why I didn't actually make my debut. Yeah.
And was you relieved because it was your third appearance? As I've gone through my notes, that you played against Luton and you scored. It was at Stamford Bridge in a 1-1 draw. Was you relieved at that point to sort of finally get off the mark, bearing in mind you was a goal scorer?
Yeah, it was more to do with playing, and trying to help the team. And when you go to a football club, you want to start straight away. You don't want to go there injured. I didn't go there injured. I went there and got injured. So, but yeah, I think it's always a relief when you score your first goal. And like I say, it was at Stamford Bridge as well, so that makes it a little bit special. Yeah.
And how did the Chelsea supporters take to you at that point when you first arrived, knowing that you came from Tottenham and it being a centre forward,
Yeah.
there must have been a lot of pressure on you to succeed early on.
Yeah, I think the move from Tottenham to Chelsea at the time, I wasn't fully aware of the effect that might have, but I think once the supporters knew they needed someone playing in the team like myself, really, and I was always a player that gave 100%, regardless, and I think most supporters accept that. Obviously, they expect the centre forward to score goals. If he's not scoring goals, contributing to scoring goals. in the team. So, you know, it didn't matter to me whether I scored. It mattered to me that the team won. You know, and you know, if I was to get one or two in games, that was great. But if I got a lot of pleasure out of setting up those as well. You know, because as I said earlier, I was a target man. I was the guy who received the ball, and then people ran off me. So, you know, at times, like I can remember, I think Liverpool, Peter Rhodes Brown was one where I received it and played, and then we went again. You know, so you know, there's games that stick in your mind. You know, I mean, there's plenty of games that stick in my mind, but the ones that stick in my mind with Chelsea are pretty obvious, really. You know, you'll probably come on to them in a minute, but
just a couple.
Yeah,
a couple.
And then obviously later on in my career, you know, switching positions was a big thing as well. But I knew I could do that. I mean, I understood what was needed, and I think that's why I eventually went into coaching, and coaching became my love of football. Because I understood what was required in all the positions on the pitch, but I understood that fairly early in my life, you know, in my career. So I could really adapt to play in most positions because I understood what was required in those positions. So, and that took me on to you know, a great experience in coaching and managing eventually.
It was the next season, the 1980-81 season. It seemed more productive for you in terms of finding the back of the net more. Did you feel that you found the rhythm and the flow of your understanding of your teammates a lot better, knowing that you had that period a few months before when you first came in, you knew what type of players that you were working with?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I also think that they recognised what I needed as well. You know, so you know, and that's really important. You know, and you know, there were some good players in that team, and you know, it was ironic really that you know the team ended up where it ended up. But you know, you go through that team, and there's some really good players. You know, and but I only spoke to, like I say, I met up with Mickey Fillery a few weeks back, and you know, his wife was there, and I said, you know, I said, such a shame for Mick. She said, I know what you're going to say, and I said, well, I said he was such a talented player, you know, such a talented player, and I think we all look at ourselves now, and I think most players, if they could rewind, would probably say that they could have been better players. Even I do that, you know. I mean, I know that my injuries really was my biggest regret, and it prevented me from really pushing on, you know. But if I could rewind now and know what I know now and put it into action now, that would make me a far better player. And I'm sure there's hundreds of players who say that. But so yeah, I think the team learned themselves that I needed supply, and the supply generally came from the wide areas. You know, there were the other goals where we went down the sides of teams in and around the 18-yard box, but that was evolved when Pat Nevin got in the team. You know, Pat Nevin was a player who excuse me, he was a player who, when he got in and around the box and he started to cut inside, that was a trigger for us to make the runs. And he had this great ability of just sliding it down the side of the centre back who he had attracted because he was leading the fullback. And that was us getting in all the time. And Curry scored a hatful of goals doing that. And Espido and myself when I played up with Curry in the beginning, you know. So yeah, it was a combination of both in answering your questions. Yeah.
Because I was going through your goal scoring record for Chelsea last week, and I saw that from September to November of 1980, in 14 games, you scored 14 goals.
Yeah.
I think Chelsea would love to have a striker that can do that at the moment. This included a hat trick against Newcastle, which I saw the highlights too. You can find on YouTube. This must have gave you huge confidence, knowing that, as you said, you're playing with certain players that started to know your strengths and
Yeah.
started to implement how you guys would play?
Yeah, I mean, I've still got the Newcastle ball now, so
Oh, brilliant.
I could have show you if I could go and get it. But yeah, the Newcastle ball is downstairs. I've got a like an area downstairs where we call it the entertainment area, but it's called the Blues Bar, believe it or not. And
Nicely put.
it's got all the Chelsea stuff down there. It's got my shirt I wore at Wembley, all on the walls. It's got signed photo of Mourinho, Eden Hazard, all the stuff really from Chelsea. And as I say, it's the Blues Bar, and we have a lot of good fun down there. But yeah, going back to the question, that was a purple period in my career. Really, it was. I mean, every time we went out, I felt as if I was going to score. And the hat-trick against Newcastle, which was match of the day as well, I believe.
Yes.
So, that was something special. But all of a sudden, something went wrong in that season, didn't it? And it all dried up a little bit. So,
yeah, after the Newcastle game, I believe we were top of the second division at that point. Was there talk amongst the boys at that stage? I know it was mid-season, that there was potential talk of promotion amongst the players?
I don't think we really talked about that too much. No, I think it was just, trying to remain consistent was the main thing. But for some reason, and I don't think anyone's ever put their finger on why it didn't continue along those lines. Maybe complacency set in somewhere. I don't know, but everyone was trying to do the same. Everyone was trying their hardest. But for some reason, the magic of winning disappeared, and I got frustrated because I thought I could go on and score 30, 40 goals that season, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and I'm not sure what happened. Whether because it was quite a long time ago, I'm not sure whether there were injuries to certain key players, because sometimes that has an effect, but no, I don't know. I don't know what happened, and but that period was great for me, and it gave me a lot of confidence, obviously. And I think that's where the fans knew that, that I was. Let's say the Tottenham games were forgotten. Let's put it that way.
One player that a certain fan base who I still sometimes we speak about when we see each other at the bridge is Peter Barata, the former goalkeeper. What was he like as a person and as a goalkeeper for the team?
Yeah, Peter was good. I mean, he apart from smoking cigarettes nearly every 5 minutes, which a lot of the players did at that time. But no, Peter was a really, really nice guy. First and foremost, a gentleman. A really, really nice fella. He was desperate for the team to do well. He would always try to give advice, and he was a good goalkeeper, Peter, and I mean his physique was something that stands to mind, like, because he was a what can I say, sculptured person in terms of his body, I think he was just, as a person, he was a lovely person, and obviously he was a very capable goalkeeper. Distribution was good. Maybe sort of lengthwise with regards to hitting centre forwards straight away. Obviously, you've got to look at Eddie Zaleski then, because Eddie was sensational, but Peter, no, just a good goalkeeper, a very good goalkeeper, but also an exceptional person, and I think that's more important.
Speaking of exceptional people, John Neal became the Chelsea manager in 1981. He replaced Sir Geoff Hurst. What was your feelings on this move with Geoff Hurst leaving, and then Bobby Gould, I think, took over temporarily, and then John Neal took over from the reins in 81?
Yeah, to be honest, uh, when Jeff was dismissed, I was pretty upset, to be quite honest with you. And I went to speak to David Mears at the time because I joined Chelsea because of Jeff Hurst, really. You know, as I said just now, you know, I thought he could lead me onto great things, you know. So I went to see the chairman, David Mears, and I said, you know, I'm a little bit concerned here because, you know, the team doesn't seem to be progressing, but you know, Jeff was working really hard to try to make that happen. And I said to him, you know, I'm having thoughts on actually requesting to leave. And we sat in the boardroom, and David said, the chairman said to me, "Look, Colin, I've got plans in place. I promise you, you know, things will get better, and we would like you to be part of that." And I said, well, you know, and there were rumours at that time, and I'm not sure how I got hold of these rumours, but there was rumours that actually Brian Clough was coming in.
Right.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But anyway, so he said, just can you just leave it with me and give me a few weeks to try to, you know, get the right person and blah, blah, blah. So we shook hands and I said, yeah, I said, you know, I really want the football club to push on, you know, and, you know, I didn't come here to not try and be successful, you know, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, obviously we left it. And then John Neal was announced as the manager a few weeks later. And I didn't know John Neal. I didn't know of him or anything. And so John came in, and John was a very, he was what I call a thinker, you know, a thinking manager, and someone who had him and Ian McNeil had a fantastic eye for a player, obviously, which we didn't know at the time. So the training sort of, John wasn't a coach, you know, he didn't come out on the training field and coach and, you know, he watched the training and went around and said his little bit here and there, but very little. Ian McNeil was more of a chirpy type person who, with the greatest respect, wasn't really a coach, although he helped here, there, and everywhere. And then obviously John Hollins did the coaching eventually. But anyway, we went on, and then all of a sudden, obviously John and Ian started to bring in players, and it was one of them situations, and I think it was, and this is another team that I followed for quite a while, was when Bill Shankly was manager of Liverpool. And I think in one of his interviews, it was said that, you know, you had a successful team and you changed it, and you had another successful team, but no one actually knew you were changing it. And John Neal went about his business in a very calm and controlled manner. And all of a sudden, this team changed, you know, and no one really grasped it or really sort of went, hang on a minute, you know, we've got all these players coming in. It wasn't like that, you know. And then, I mean, the players that came in, I mean, you could reel them off, you know, it was incredible, you know. And out of the team that I started playing in at Chelsea, there was myself, John Bumstead, Colin Pates, and I think that was the only three that he kept.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't realise that, you know. I didn't realise it until, well, one of the proudest moments of being a Chelsea player, and one of my proudest moments was being the bearer at John Neal's funeral, with both Mickey Thomas and Joey Jones. And for me, that will always be one of the biggest moments to remember in my my football career, really, because the man was, at the time, you didn't appreciate it. You thought, well, do something, John, say something to us, or say, but the players were, Speedo and Dixon would be arguing because he didn't pass to him, and in the changing room, we had this incredible desire to win, and but John was obviously a fantastic manager for Chelsea. He went about his business in a manner which was new to me and new to all the players, because I don't think I've ever seen John Neal raise his voice or shout and scream at anyone. Never, ever. But he wanted the players to do the talking for him, and no, he's a great man, and Ian McNeil was his partner, and his again, between them, the players that they brought in, you couldn't question it, and but every one of them players were winners, and that's what they built the team around, winners. And I think that is something to admire. I went into management, and if your recruitment is not good, then you're not a good manager. The most important part of managing, in my opinion, and having experienced is recruitment. And John Neal was the best recruitment person that I think arguably Chelsea have had, in taking into account the amounts of money, the wage restriction, everything else, the budget, if you like. I think he's got to be top of the pile.
Was you surprised under John Neal that it was a case of a different position for you? You started off as a centre forward, but under John Neal, he wanted you to play in defence. Was you happy with this, or was this a case of doing something for the team rather than individual glory?
Yeah, I didn't fall out with John Neal, but no, it made no difference to me. Let's put that to place straight away. But there's a story leading up to this, as opposed to him just saying to me, "I want you to play there." It was nothing like that. What it was I think if you look at I was playing up front with Kerry Dixon, and Dave Speedy was substitute at that time, and we were doing really well. I think Fulham comes to mind when we beat them 5-something over there. I think Kerry might have got 2 or a hat trick, and I got 1 or 2. So we were doing really well, and but John had brought in Speedo, but Speedo couldn't get in the team. So, and then I think it might have been against Cardiff or something at home, and I was ill. I couldn't play. And that was the start of the Dave Speedy, Kerry Dixon partnership. I couldn't play because I was ill. They hit it off. I then started to train and got well again. And I was on the bench.
Right.
But in training, sometimes I just put myself at the back and want to play at the back, and I could do it. There was no doubt about that. And funny enough, prior to joining Chelsea, I played at right back for Tottenham, and I can remember the very, very last game of the season. We played West Bromwich Albion against the 3 Degrees. It was then Laurie Cunningham, Cyril Regis, and one other player. I can't remember his name now. I should do, but I can't remember. Anyway, I played right back against Laurie Cunningham, and Laurie Cunningham was an outstanding player. But thankfully, I got man of the match, and I've still got the briefcase that I got for man of the match somewhere in my belongings downstairs, which was a Ferrari briefcase. So I played there before. It made no difference. And I think if you look back to the season before, when John came in and just about kept us up, I played Oldham away, centre half, with an apprentice beside me. and I think Alan Mays might have scored 2 or 3 goals in that game. You might have to look that up, but
Right.
Joe Royer was their manager, and Joe came up to me afterwards and said, that was outstanding, and blah, blah, blah. So playing at the back wasn't new to me, albeit at Chelsea, no one had actually, seen me play there. I played the odd reserve game at right back when I think Gary Locke was there then. So Gary was in the team, I think, when I first went there, but I did play the odd game there. So going on and fast forwarding quite a bit. So I was sat out of the team, and then one day in training, we went out to training, and the training program started, and for some reason, Clive Walker and myself was left out of the training. And I think Johnny Hollins had taken the training, and I was with Clive, and I said to him, I can't understand this, and we were just kicking the ball between ourselves. Nothing was said to us. So I said, I'm not putting up with this, I'm going in. So he went, what? I said, I don't deserve this treatment. I'm off in, I'm going in. So John Neal was in there looking out the window to see where the training was. So I said, Gaffer, can I have a word, like? And he went, yeah. I said, I don't deserve this. I said, I come in here to train this. I said, I'm not in the training program. I said, I don't deserve this. I said, when you were struggling last year, I said, I played everywhere for you. I played in midfield. I played at the back. I said, I sweat blood for this football club, and I still do it now. I said, but I want to play. I said, I don't want to be, and I want to train. I want to play. I said, I don't want to do anything else. I said, I'm not getting the opportunity. I said, and last year, when no one wanted to play for you, I was the guy who played everywhere for you. And he went, Colin, get your cell phone. You're playing right back on Saturday. And that was Derby away. Mickey Thomas came in, and we were unbeaten for the rest of the season. And that's exactly what happened. So it's a story.
Crazy.
But it's exactly what happened. So it wasn't him saying to me, I want to see you, you're going to play right back. The story I've just told you is the 100% truth of how it happened. Yeah.
That 83-84 season, a lot of people, and I saw it firsthand a few months ago, a lot of people that in that generation still remember it fondly, and a lot of the players, your teammates, still remember it well.
Yeah.
From the inside, what was it that just clicked in terms of the players, in terms of that particular team and how they played? What particular moment would you say started it? You mentioned about the recruitment in the summer when we brought in the likes of Kerry Dixon, Pat Nevin, Eddie Niedzwiecki. Or was it certain games that perhaps, in your opinion, may have sort of turned the tide in Chelsea's favour? What, in your opinion, was that moment that just sparked that memorable season?
I think really it was starting fairly well, and the understanding in the team. We all had a role to play. And you've heard it a million times, they got the ingredients right, and I have to say that I could play in that team now because it was so easy, because I know how Pat Nevin played, I knew how Spackman played, I knew how Bumstead played, I knew, I went to right back, and I knew that I had to give the ball different to Dave Speedy, and I had to perfect 3 passes, really, playing it right back. Maybe 4, but 3 in particular. And the 4th one is just giving it to Pat Nevin, you know what I mean? So, but the point I'm making is that everyone understood everyone else's play, and it grew into a confidence. And when we walked out onto the pitch, I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure everyone felt the same. It wasn't, were we going to win today? It was how many we were going to win by.
Right.
So we never ever thought of losing. We always believed we were going to win, and that comes with confidence. We talked about confidence a few moments ago, and not just confidence as individuals, but confidence as a team. And, you know, you put that team out there now, if we were all fit and able, that team would still function exactly the same, because we all understood our strengths, our weaknesses, and we all always played to everyone's strengths. So, you know, Johnny Bumstead, you know, knew the way that Spackers played. You know, Spackers was here, there, everywhere, and Bunners floated around behind him and broke play down and you know, played the passes that he could play. You know, Pat was. I mean, I can remember I used to go on when I first played it right back with Pat in front of me. I used to go on overlaps quite a lot, and John Neal got me in the office, and we were flying at that time, you know. And John Neal got me in the office, and I went home grumpy after this, to be honest. And he said, Colin, he said, how do you think you're doing? And I said, I'm loving it. I said, I think it's great, like, you know. He said, can I just say one thing? And I said, what's that? He says, as a fullback, he said, try to make your priority defending. He said, because you're going to come up against this. So I said, okay. He said, so every time in these areas you give Pat the ball, sit behind him, don't go past him. And I was fuming, like I went out the thing, like, but then I'm driving up the road to home and I'm thinking, okay, now I know exactly what he meant, you know. And so my job was get the ball, give it to Pat. If it was on the halfway or somewhere, you know, and I could get up there, but generally speaking, I supported the play from behind more than in front, you know. And no, it was just poetry, really. We just understood it. I remember Curry Dixon's testimonial, and I think we played Tottenham. I think we played Tottenham in that game, and I mean, and we gave them a hell of a game. I think we might have even beaten them. I'm not sure, but we were like old crocs, if you like, you know. So it was just, we never thought we would lose. You know, we always thought we would win.
We win the second division title.
Yeah.
We beat Leeds at Stamford Bridge 5-0, another old rival of ours.
Yeah.
We're back in the first division. Where does this rank in your list of accomplishments?
Well, I think it's got to be up there with best, you know. I mean, funny enough, I did a little talk at a school when my grandson goes a couple of weeks ago, and I put my Chelsea shirt on, and I took all my bits and pieces I managed to get as a professional football player with me, including the Newcastle United ball, and you know, those memories start flooding back, you know. But winning that because there was a lot of rivalry between us and Sheffield Wednesday at that time as well, and I just, you know, it's got to be, in my opinion, the standout period in my career, yeah, in regards to being a player, yeah.
Speedy, good in the air again, and Wilson, the slip comes